News!
Okay, we'll start with this. Another look at Evelyn Bermudez's upcoming MVP debut after having been picked up by the promotion set to square off against Mexico's own Stephanie Osorio, little-known Mexican boxer that shows some ability.
Evelyn Bermudez, the reigning champion, is about 29 years old to Stephanie, who is 26.
Evelyn Bermudez, who holds 3 of the 4 major titles in the light flyweight division, with the only other title held by Mexico's own Lourdes Juarez, who is also set to make her MVP debut in the not-so-distant future. Back over to Evelyn, who sports a professional record of 22 wins with 1 loss and 1 draw, 8 recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out in 24 professional bouts, coming from a fighting family, the Fighting Bermudez sisters, Daniela, Roxana, and of course, Evelyn
of Argentina.
And there is a well-established rivalry in the women's ranks between Argentine fighters and Mexican fighters like Stephanie, who sports a professional record, 14 wins with 1 loss and no draws, 4 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 15 professional bouts. Definitely more than just a prospect. She's a contender,
albeit an inexperienced one, and that's what may determine the outcome of the match.
Last in action in March of this year, opposite the ring, Dana Sid, who Stephanie decisioned over 10 rounds. Before that, she saw action in March of the previous year against Angelina Galindo. There is a year in between there, March of last year and March of this one. This fight that Stephanie's about to have will be her second fight of this calendar year. The first for the reigning champion, the first for Evelyn, who saw action 2 times last year, once in March, then again in September, knocking out unbeaten Sarah Bailey in Sarah Bailey's neck of the woods.
She took Sarah's WBA title in that fight. That was a unification match.
Currently on a 5-fight winning streak after having dropped a majority decision to Yokasta Valle, who very briefly moved up in weight, challenged her for her belts, took them,
then dropped back down.
At which point, Evelyn Bermudez won them back. That is the lone defeat of Evelyn Bermudez's illustrious boxing career so far, and she is once again a light flyweight champion, just 1 fight away from undisputed.
Currently on a hot streak, facing some respectable fighters in unbeaten Tania Enriquez, then champion Kim Clavel, former champion Tenkai Tsunami, Sarah Bailey.
Now she's fighting Stephanie, and what immediately stands out is that Stephanie is a lot less experienced than Evelyn Bermudez, which matters a great deal. You often hear it said that styles make fights, and having had a look at Stephanie, she does seem to have the right base style for the job.
Stephanie looks to be a boxer-puncher, whereas Evelyn is a pressure fighter. Through and through, that's what she is, and that's what has worked for her. Usually, boxer-punchers have the drop on pressure fighters.
Because they can box when they need to and punch when they need to, move when they need to, they can alternate from offense to defense seamlessly, giving them a stylistic edge, whereas pressure fighters, they're all offense all the time.
So Stephanie looks to have the right base style for the job, but perhaps not the right level of experience, and we've seen that in recent memory when David Benavidez fought David Morrell. It was the same kind of matchup. David Morrell had the look of a boxer-puncher, but he was a lot less experienced than David Benavidez, and so he was out of sorts and overwhelmed.
And that is what could end up happening here. Stephanie might have the right base style for the job, but she's never been in there with somebody as good and as experienced as an Evelyn Bermudez. That constant pressure could cause her to unravel.
Which has happened to Stephanie at least once before in October of 2024 when she dropped a decision to Melanie Minor, a far less experienced fighter than an Evelyn Bermudez.
Far less decorated, far less capable, and so Evelyn Bermudez, the defending champion, seems the logical choice to me. It's possible that Stephanie, because she's got the right base style for the job, she could make it interesting in spots.
She's likely to lose a points decision. This is set to go down in June on the 13th on the undercard of O'Shea Jones's MVP debut on the Plus.
Tiaria Brown will also be making her MVP debut alongside Evelyn, and O'Shea Jones will be headlining.
Evelyn Bermudez on points is the pick.
Now for a second look at a recent set of post-fight comments from the newly minted unified cruiserweight champion David Benavidez, who wants a September return in Las Vegas that might now be hampered by both Canelo Alvarez and Ryan Garcia potentially boxing that same month, exploring why it is I keep saying I'm not sure this guy is going to fight again this year. David said, I think it's in the best interests of my career to keep fighting on May 5th and September 14th. Benavidez said after headlining on Cinco de Mayo weekend for the first time. Canelo's over there in Saudi Arabia, so he leaves it wide open for me. This is a great date. We put on a great show for the people, and I've earned it.
The opening David is talking about is Canelo Alvarez boxing in Saudi. He's actually boxing on a different time zone than he would if he were here. He's boxing basically in the afternoon, leading into the evening. Something that you sort of have to take on assumption because they could always make reasonable accommodation for Canelo to fight at a time in Saudi that accommodates a U.S. audience. It's very early, and there's still a lot we don't know.
But that's what David is talking about. David, who said, I've been a professional for 13 years, since I was 16 years old. I started from the bottom and went all the way to the top, calling out the best of the best. I did it the hard way. Nothing was ever given to me, so now that I'm here, I think I deserve to fight on this card, on this date, and I'm gonna keep giving the fans what they want to see.
What may hamper a September return for David Benavidez is Canelo Alvarez's next ring appearance, and depending on what time of day they decide to do it. Generally speaking, primetime hours in Saudi Arabia are akin to primetime hours in the UK. It's a more accommodating time for them than us. But if arrangements are made for Canelo Alvarez to box at a time that would accommodate a U.S. audience, that pretty much nixes David Benavidez fighting at that same time. He can say what he wants to the media. He's not stupid enough to schedule a fight going head-to-head with Canelo Alvarez. Canelo's fight would cannibalize his. The only reason he boxed this past Cinco de Mayo weekend is because Canelo wasn't fighting. If he were,
They would not have scheduled David's fight that weekend.
so that's something that might hamper David Benavidez's September ring return, that Canelo's returning in September, but not just him. Ryan Garcia is also returning in September. Things could get crowded enough to where it's hard for David to schedule a fight that month. You have to consider that while Canelo's all the way out there in Saudi, Ryan's fight is going to be right here in the United States, in Vegas, and it's rumored to be against Conor Benn on Netflix. Now, even if it's not on the same day as David's fight, it's still a problem because Ryan's doing a fight in Vegas and you want to do one there too? They're too close together. Needless to say that Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn is a high-profile fight and will be a hot ticket, but for David, who is it that he's supposed to be fighting in September?
What's he supposed to compete with?
I think a fight with Bivol would be better in the United States only because I sell more than him in the US than Bivol sells over there, Benavidez said. You know, the whole house was packed tonight. That's something that I worked really, really hard to do. It's not easy to pack out the T-Mobile Arena, and we did that not only once, we did it twice. We did it once with David Morrell, and then again tonight. So, I mean, I've got the ball in my hands. I'm the one that's filling out these stadiums.
What stadium? The T-Mobile Arena is not a stadium. That's an arena.
Does he not know the difference, or that he didn't fill that place out to capacity? The upper section was all curtained off. Those were all seats that they didn't bother to move because they knew they couldn't. And what else may hamper a September return for David Benavidez is the opponent's selection. He's talking about Dimitri Bivol. Dimitri in September, presumably at light heavyweight where Dimitri Bivol still campaigns now. Ask yourselves a question. Do you honestly believe that between now and September, David's going to be able to get back down there to box Dimitri? And it's not just getting down to light heavyweight. There's also the offer, because you're talking about bringing Dimitri Bivol to the United States,
Where you couldn't afford to bring Callum Smith to the United States.
Do you remember when David Benavidez flew out to Saudi to be there for Better B versus Bivol, and he was offered a Callum Smith fight by Turki El Sheikh?
Hopefully, we might be looking at a future opponent. Callum Smith, we're both at 175. He just gave a great fight, and I think me and Callum Smith would be a great fight, so maybe we can make that happen in the future.
We received a large amount of millions to fight Smith, and we denied.
Did you catch that? Samson admitted they were made a multi-million-dollar offer to fight Callum Smith, which they rejected. Let's hear it again.
DJ, play it back.
A large amount of millions to fight Smith, and we denied.
Turkey made these guys a multi-million-dollar offer to box Callum Smith in Saudi, which they turned down, only to run back to America to try to make the same fight with the same guy for less money.
Needless to say, the fight didn't happen, and that's not me connecting the dots or paraphrasing. That's how it happened verbatim. You see, Samson Lukowicz admit they were made a multi-million-dollar offer to take that fight. They rejected it.
When Callum Smith was asked what happened to the Benavidez fight, he said, put simply, he made more money boxing Joshua Buatsi than what they offered him to fight David. The point being, if you guys couldn't afford to bring Callum Smith to the United States, if you couldn't put together a good enough offer for him, how are you supposed to do that for Dimitri?
Dimitri's gonna be even more expensive than Callum was.
So when you talk about David potentially returning in September and potentially returning in Vegas, potentially against Dimitri Bivol, I don't see it, because that would require David to drop back down to light heavy, which I don't think he can make anymore, to fight in Vegas, which might be pretty crowded that month,
And to fight Dimitri, who I don't think he can afford. Not on a Vegas budget, maybe a Saudi one.
So what about Jai Opetaia? Is there any chance that he could fight Jai Opetaia in September?
As it pertains to Jai Opetaia, David said, Jai Opetaia has never fought on pay-per-view, never filled out an arena like this. His last fight was in the Zuffa boxing place, the Meta Apex. And I'm not even trying to be disrespectful, those are just the facts. So I mean, if they want me to go over there to Saudi, why? They've got to pay me some good money to make it over there, or they could come here. We could come to the table right here. But I don't know. I've worked really, really hard, and everything I've got now, I deserve. And I worked hard for it. So, you know, if they want to come to the table over here, we could do it.
It's not going to be Jai Opetaia either.
Along with those comments that David made after the Zurdo Ramirez fight, he also put a Jai Opetaia fight out there, all the way out there 2 years from now. That's what he said. That's not me paraphrasing or putting words in his mouth. Those are the words that came out of his mouth. He's not in any hurry to fight Jai. And even if he were, preliminary reports from out of Australia indicate that Jai will be returning to action in August opposite the ring, Noel Mikhailian, for Noel's WBC title.
I don't think David wants to fight Jai Opetaia. Him and his team keep coming up with reasons not to. When he says that he never sold out an arena.
Neither did Zurdo Ramirez.
When he says that he's never fought on pay-per-view.
Neither did David Morrell or Zurdo Ramirez or the majority of fighters that David has fought. So why should that be an obstacle for Jai?
You can see that both him and his father and his manager are actively looking for reasons not to do that fight. So let's just establish that they don't want to fight Jai Opetaia in September, but even if they did, Jai's not available, not based on reports coming out of Australia.
The point being, I don't know that David is going to fight again this year. I've been saying that on repeat for numerous reasons. Because of the scheduling, because of the opponent selection, because David Benavidez insists on boxing on pay-per-view exclusively, and you need a certain kind of dance partner to do that.
You can't seriously charge people $75 or $80 to watch you stay busy in a stay busy fight.
That just makes it harder to get David out there and get him active.
But the bottom line is, I don't know that David Benavidez fights again this year. There are several constraints: scheduling, weight, opponent selection, money.
I don't know that he fights again this year, let alone in a crowded month like September, but we'll see.
In men's heavyweight news, Filip Hrgovic outlines game plan to challenge different level Itauma. The ring's number 5 rated heavyweight barely broke a sweat against Dave Allen and made a conscious effort to set about the home favorite as soon as he saw defensive openings in the first frame. Allen shipped punishment aplenty before his corner, led by Jamie Moore, had seen enough and compassionately pulled him out 23 seconds before the end of round 3 at Doncaster's Keepmoat Stadium, exactly a week removed from widespread criticism surrounding Team Wortley's inability to pull the plug early against Daniel Dubois. There was to be no repeat, as the Yorkshireman was simply outclassed by a far superior operator. During his post-fight interview, the Croatian apologized to a partisan crowd wishing for a fairy tale story to have its happy ending. I started fast because I saw he was open from the beginning, wanted to finish him fast to make a statement. I want to fight with anyone in the division, Moses or anyone. I just need to sit with my manager, my team, to check if there are any cuts, injuries. Give me a mirror, George Warren, and I'll sign the contract now. Sit for a few days and we'll decide. I never run from any opponent. Sporting a slight nick on his eye and swelling to his lip, Hrgovic doubled down in a dressing room interview with Queensbury.
They've got all the heavyweights.
I'll fight Moses, just need to make sure everything is right for me. It's already in the contract, he signed a multi-fight extension. He's a really good guy, fast, and a big task. One of the best in the division, but he's not tested yet. He never received a good punch, never went deep in the late rounds, so I believe in myself. I'm not the favorite in that fight, but I believe I can beat him.
He's right about that. Moses hasn't been chin-checked yet, and for as promising as he looks, those eggs need more bacon. He's set to be returning in August, I believe it is.
When asked about how different that matchup would look to the one with Dave Allen, who he breezed past, it wasn't even a question. Much different. He's on a much different level, much faster, bigger, a really fast southpaw. He will give me problems. Bad times in the first few rounds because of the speed, but I see my chance. Bringing him into the deep waters. Go to the body a lot, make him tired, push him to his limits. He's a big puncher, but no one has ever knocked me out in my life. Great chin, durable, and I throw a lot of punches.
Many of which sail to the back of your opponent's head.
I can give him a big challenge, and I believe that I can beat him. He referenced the Dubois defeat in June of 2024, once stopped by the doctor after suffering cuts above both eyes. As further evidence of his toughness, Queensbury chief George Warren voiced a natural eagerness to get that fight made for a summer headliner at the O2 on August 8th. Dave was brave, but Filip showed his class. As soon as we're in the office next week, we want to get that fight made and announced. Keep delivering great fights. He's a world-class operator. Moses wants to be a world champion, as does Filip. They're gonna have to get it on at some point, so why not now? Hrgovic, who briefly stated he endured a terrible training camp for this, was glad to get through relatively unscathed and snap the barren run without a stoppage, since a first-round blowout of the overmatched foe Mark Demori in December of 2023. Itauma has continued his rapid development and boxed 7 times since then. El Animal, just 4 by comparison, and this morale-boosting display could see them meet at the best possible time.
Separately, Filip Hrgovic's manager Keith Connolly afterwards floated the idea of running it back with Daniel Dubois to avenge Filip Hrgovic's loss to him.
Which sounds to me like he's not all that receptive to a Moses Itauma fight. There's just one problem. Daniel Dubois has to run it back with Fabio Wortley, who just activated his rematch clause. He's not available to run it back with you guys because he's got to run it back with him. So, I mean, you've already had a stay busy fight with Dave Allen that didn't last very long. Your preferred opponent choice is not available at this time. It looks like it's Moses or bust. Moses or nobody.
I like the sound of that fight. Filip Hrgovic would be an adequate acid test for the rising young star.